Hi, I hope you can see me. I'm going to give this a shot. This is my first time presenting for MAD PD. My name is Karina McLaughlin, and I'm a grade 6 teacher in Lively, Ontario. I'm going to share about my math journey. And so, how I decided to do that was to create like a video that I can try to answer questions as we're going through it, and hopefully, this will work. So, bear with me while I try to screen share. And let's see if I can do this. My math journey began a little over 2 years ago when I actually felt really good about my math instruction. I was using low floor, high ceiling activities, and my students were taking part in 3-part problem solving each day. They liked the challenge, they seemed good with everything until we got to a provincial testing, or EQAO as it's called in Ontario. Students' feedback after the test was that they needed more independent challenge to be better prepared. And I could see that and I could understand that because the 3-part lessons, they didn't have to do independent work until after we had already done whole class and partner work as well. So of course I decided to change my practice, and I incorporated a 10-minute independent challenge to start each 60-minute math period each day. So an example of the types of questions I would give were just this would be up on the smartboard, and the students would look at it and they would have about 10 minutes to try to solve it. They didn't get everything done every day, but they went in and tried to give it a good go without any preamble. So without any hints from me or talking to their friends. So it was almost like the provincial testing in that way. At that point, I was also curious about flipping the classroom, and I'd heard a lot about it. So I started to do a little bit of reading. I took part in some PD at a local high school, and I learned a little bit about that. It was more about student ownership for the learning rather than me. So I started to produce some little videos for the students, and I put them on my YouTube channel. Here's an example of just a little tidbit of one. So these 3 fractions are all equivalent. They are the exact same amount of the whole, just the whole is divided into different sections or different sizes. So for example, this whole is divided into halves. So as you can see, it was little videos that the students could use to help them understand what we were learning in class and to kind of have a little pre-look at what was coming up during the classes. So I decided to take it one step further, and I tried to plan a 2D geometry unit. I'll give you a little preview of it now. So it started with a pretest that I used a Google form, and I asked the students to identify the areas that they thought they might need more help when it came to 2D geometry. We organized that and made sure that people had a good idea of which things they were going to need extra help with. So as we continued through the unit, they would know which parts they really needed to work on. So each day or two, I would introduce a new lesson. So for example, the lesson would have a lesson goal, and it would also have the tasks that I had found online, some videos, music, some games, traditional things like using the textbooks, and online practice. Overall, the students adored the unit. They loved the self-pacing, and they truly own their own learning. They started to produce their own YouTube videos that were posted for the other students to be able to review and understand. Here's a short example.
Let's review. An equilateral has all equal sides, an isosceles has only 2 equal sides, and a scaling has no equal sides.
The other cool thing during this unit is they started to be able to understand the math words on the word wall a lot better. So they started to create, using PicCollage, their very own meanings or definitions for each of the words. So here are just a couple of quick examples of what they were producing using kid-friendly language and words that they had to make sure that other people understood as well. So basically what we did was we created QR codes to go along with each of these words. And here's a short little excerpt to show you how it was used.
And we had a very cool use for the iPads with respect to our math word wall. As a language math activity, we created graphic representations using pictures and words for every word on the math wall. We then created QR codes for each graphic, and students can now use any device to scan a word on our word wall to understand the word more clearly. We leave one device with the word wall for this purpose.
So that was really cool, because now they're doing the work, not me so much. So this sounds great. Just keep going. Students are loving it. They're owning their thinking. They're producing their own videos and word wall words. The problem was the time on my end. I'll show you a little excerpt to show you what I mean.
The first was the time factor. Before the unit, it took many hours to plan the lessons and find valuable supports that truly met the needs of the lesson. Time throughout the unit was also an issue because there were 7 different lessons and each had a mastery task to check, and some even had to complete them more than once if they started it too early in their learning. Students wanted credit for the mastery task right away so that they could move on to the next task. And so I definitely need to rethink that one.
So that's one of the things that was the problem for me, is trying to manage time. And that's something I think all of us struggle with in teaching. So we came up with a new idea with my friends, and we were going to try to do Math Wars. And I'll show you a little bit, because this is actually a picture of me with all the mastery tasks in front of me, getting ready to lose my mind, basically. And so this was our next step in the math journey. So Math Wars was the next idea, and that was to put people into groups and basically have the students teach one another the tasks that I gave them. And so the tasks were a little bit more broad, a little bit more that they chose and tried to find it. And again, this was another piece that did work well, but was hard to sustain because students can only work for so long with one another. Fast forward to the 2017-2018 school year. Throughout the summer, I kept thinking, Karina, what are you doing? Trust your gut. You know what you need to teach. Focus on number sense. Work on the other strands as you see fit. And just keep cycling through the topics over and over and over again. Forget about teaching things in units. Teach them in open ways. Continue to go back to them. So sometimes I'd spend 2 or 3 days on the same topic. Sometimes it was one period. And then we moved on to something different the following day and just continued to cycle our way through. This was actually my tracking sheet that I used to keep track of when I covered different topics, just to kind of keep myself on track and make sure that I knew what was happening. It's worked really well. In my school, we also have been lucky enough to have some of the Kathy Fosno units, the Joe Bowler visual math work, she's wonderful, and Marion Small's open questions. And we use lots of that as well. But the focus really has been on trusting myself, knowing what I need to teach, and then spiraling it, coming back to it over and over again. An example of a topic that I would have spiraled throughout the year is fractions. So at the end of October, I started off with just talking about fractions as part of a group or of a whole, and working with some manipulatives. These are the kinds of things my students were producing. And into November, we're starting to work on like fractions, decimals, and percents. By mid-November, we're working on ordering them, putting them in order using the benchmarks of 0, half, and 1. By the middle of February, we're looking at tangram pieces and assigning them fractional values. At the end of February, we're looking at pictures and trying to assign fractional values again to them and making our own puzzles, compliments of Joe Bowler. End of March, we're working with each one another's puzzles to practice our fractions again, extending that into probability. And by the end of March, we're playing fraction games. And by the middle of April, we're using what we know to make sure that we're on track with our fraction learning. Another idea that was spiraled throughout the whole year was area. Now, for area, we started at the end of November and with some very simple ideas of ensuring that we understood what area actually was and the difference between that and perimeter. We started looking at using manipulatives to understand arrays and then using bigger numbers, same idea. The middle of December, we're playing area games that were really clear on what that means. By the middle of December, we're now solving for an unknown, but using area concepts. By the end of December, we're creating our own little problems, area problems, using symbols. And beginning of March, we're starting into surface area, understanding that we need to make nets, and that to do that, you could use the sides to get the surface area of each shape. We looked at square centimeters and square meters and the difference between those at the end of March, right? And again, by the end of March, we're looking at that different, the area doesn't change even if the shape does change. And then we've got ourselves working into understanding the formula for the area of a parallelogram. And I love that my students said it's the width times the column, which I thought was really smart, probably smarter than base times height, even though that's the common way to say it. And then we started working into the area of a triangle from that. And by the beginning of April, we're getting really good at using all of those things. And by mid-April, we're now going into volume.
So thank you definitely to Dora Raymond, my buddy who's on watching too. She is the one that helped me to make all of the video and get it all prepared. I hope that it helps some people to learn a little bit more about your, or about how I tried to spiral the teaching that I'm doing in my classroom. And there's a question from Mrs. Raymond, who's in my classroom most days, but she asked about how the struggling learners are doing with this. And I think that the biggest thing is that they have a way in. So again, that kind of goes back to the open questions that we've been using before. But I think that the struggling learners at least have something that they can contribute. And so I think that anything that whenever they feel good, you know that you're doing a good job. If there isn't any more questions, I guess we will stop and enjoy your Sunday and the rest of Mad PD. Thank you.